Now that we've had a brief introduction to cells, we're going to learn a lot of the big differences and similarities between prokaryotic, eukaryotic cells and plant and animal cells. First thing, if we just look at the general structure of the cell, the eukaryotes are much bigger, and it's because of all the organelles it has to help take care of stuff on the inside, where the prokaryotes are much smaller. We'll talk about why cells are the size they are a little bit more in the future, but I think it'll become a bit more apparent as you see all the organelles eukaryotes have, why they're able to grow to a larger size. Also notice the cell wall of the prokaryotes is very complex. With that capsule, that gelatinous substance, it'll help it link onto surfaces. Many eukaryotic cells and eukaryotic organisms can survive on their own, where prokaryotes have to attach to a surface of another organism to get some of its nutrients, because they're not as mobile or part of a multicellular organism, so they need that complex cell wall, where if there's a cell wall in a eukaryote, like in plants, it's very simple typically. So that's from the outside of the cell. They both have some structure. There is no cytoskeleton in a prokaryote, where there's cytoskeleton in a eukaryote. The size of the ribosomes, much like the size of the cells, differs a little bit, but they do both have ribosomes. They both do have cytoplasm. They both do have a plasma membrane that helps them all keep their shape. They may have flagella or may not. That's not really a defining characteristic for either of them. In order to reproduce, both undergo cell division. It's called mitosis in eukaryotes, and you'll learn more about that later, and just simple binary fission in prokaryotes. The really big difference, though, is the organelles. There's no membrane organelles. There's no nucleus. The genetic material might be kind of condensed, but it just floats around. Where we have all those membrane-bound organelles, you learned about the mitochondria, the Golgi apparatus, the endoplasmic reticulum, and you have this linear DNA that's stored inside a nucleolus instead of a nucleus. So the complexity is one big thing for eukaryotes. The size is another big thing for eukaryotes, and that's why they're probably bigger, is because of that complexity inside the cell. Since both plant and animal cells are eukaryotes, they both have many of these organelles. We're familiar with mitochondria to undergo respiration, the plasma and the cytoplasm to help with the shape, the ribosomes for protein, the ER to help with protein and lipids and carb synthesis, the Golgi apparatus to help package materials out of the cells, the microtubules, which also go with the structure of the cell, the nucleus to store the genetic information. There are a few big differences, though, and with the plants, that cell wall on the outside, creating that structure that makes plants look much more angular, that large vacuole to store things, chloroplasts and plastids, which help them get their own food. Over in animal cells, we have centrioles, which help with mitosis. They may have something to help them move, flagella or cilia or things like that. The lysosomes, which break down materials, are somewhat unique to animal cells and not to plant cells as well. So the locomotion part, and we know plants aren't particularly mobile, and then a few of these other small features. For the plants, it's that structure that the vacuole and the cell wall help provide that make a big difference, as well as being able to make your own food with chloroplasts.